The stream is up, Arlen.
All right. Yeah, let's get the meeting going here. This is the June 21st, 2021 Legislative and Policy Committee meeting. It is 4:48 p.m. and we will start and get going on things here. The meeting agenda is business items of data sharing procedures, policy reviews, proposed policy changes, school board procedures, and other issues. I don't know, do we need an approval on the agenda?
I don't think we've done that in the past.
Because we got other issues there if we need it, so I guess we'll get going. First item on here is data sharing procedures.
A couple of things there. First, I did include our latest version of a student release form, or student information release form. That's included in the packet. This is considerably different than what we did in previous years. But this is, the form that's included is one that's specifically written for youth outreach. And so that's one of the changes, is that I'm thinking that we would tailor each one of these drafts or authorizations for the particular group. And so you see that I included that information up there. I also changed the student information so it's, we show the grade in, which year, because I think that's clearer for parents. The information under records identified for release, it's not redlined, but it's completely different than what we've done in the past. I've been working with Melinda Johnson to better understand exactly what our mentors can see using the Synergy information system. And so this is what we have right now. I do want Melinda to look through it one more time just to make sure we haven't missed something. But the biggest change in that section has to do with the school district simply indicating that we will not release the information like for chemical assessment information, psychiatric reports, health information, IEPs, and Section 504 records, that's just not standard release information. Certainly if there was a parent or student or a parent who really needs some information to be shared, let's say with a youth outreach mentor, we could certainly have them fill out another form, in order to release that. But we don't want to be in the habit of sharing all that information with every mentor for every child. We just don't think that's an appropriate thing to do. So those are the big changes. Just to let you know that these authorization forms are filled out once per year, and a teacher can revoke the authorization at any time, and then we simply take them out of a group where that information would be shared. So that's the one thing. The other part is that I was hoping to provide kind of an updated version of the data sharing procedures that are included in our administrative procedures handbook. And I was not able to get it done in time for this meeting, and I'm sorry about that. I was planning to work on it when I was on vacation in Montana, and then in the end I decided to spend time with my family instead. But I can rework those based on the feedback that I had a month ago and present it to you in July. So it really won't impact anything, except it's just taking another month to finally propose an update to you.
Okay, so when will this form be sent out to parents if we approve it as a board or whatever?
Yeah, typically we have never approved the actual form, that's used. The district office, formulates that. That gives us some flexibility in terms of making changes in the form. But I wanted at least this committee to take a look at it and provide some feedback before I actually start using it. And I don't want to throw something at you, at a meeting like this, and then all of a sudden you have to make a quick decision. My thinking is that if you could take this form or review this form over the next few weeks, and then we can review it together in July at this committee meeting, along with the different procedures. So you can kind of see everything at once.
So the form won't really be used till the start of next school year, is that correct? Or when
Yeah,
are
this
they
form,
taking data?
yeah, you're correct. It's a form that would be used by by mentors starting September 1st of 2021 for 1 year.
Nikki, you got anything?
No, I'm just like observing and kind of listening and just kind of following along right now. But I do remember being a part of was it the tech committee? And I don't know, maybe you two can answer this question for me. I remember them saying something about like with the Chromebooks, I think it was like if they can gather data on students who are talking about like, I know they've been able to do that with like students who might cause harm to schools, but they were thinking of adding something like if they're causing harm to themselves, that's when they would share the students' information from that. Something, does that sound familiar or no?
Hey, Anna. Hey. Yeah, it doesn't, I know that we've had some questions about when we, can access a student's email account and when we, and so it would make some sense to include that in, one of our policies or procedures. So, but I haven't seen any specific proposed language. I can certainly follow up on that though.
Yeah, because I know they were just talking about it at the last meeting I had attended. Was that in May? About being able to have that option to hopefully maybe save a child's life if they're
Right.
talking about suicide and stuff. So, but that would go hand in hand with this, right? That's essentially what we're kind of talking about, right? Things like that.
Yeah, this
Or is that another sector to it?
kind of related, but it's different. And so this form is used by, for example, youth outreach mentors. So if a parent wants his or her own child to be mentored by someone with youth outreach, the parent has to fill out this form agreeing that the school can release this information to the mentor. And so that's where this form comes in. However, what you just brought up is related to our tech policy or our data, some of our procedures for sharing student data. And so that's where I'll process it is one of those policies or procedures.
Other than that, no, I don't have any questions. Thank you, Arlen, for asking.
Well, I like the form, the way it's worded. I mean, there's two issues here to me. One is the form. I would encourage, if we do end up doing this, that the second paragraph, private education data will not be shared without your informed in consent, either be in bold or underlined. That's just my thought, but that way parents know that it to me, it puts out easier that your data is not going to be shared unless you agree to it. But I think we still are waiting. Maybe I'm wrong on this. I thought we were going to have a discussion on data sharing before August and what we will or won't allow to what groups and stuff. So I'm not sure where that part fits in here. But like I say, I do like the form, the way it's worded and different things. I think there's a lot of pluses. If it's going to happen, I would prefer this for anything we do, something very similar.
Yeah, I'll definitely change the first sentence of the second paragraph. That's an easy change.
Well, it's up to you. That's my thoughts. I want to stress that, but that may not be everybody else's. I here also. So
I like that suggestion a lot, Arlen.
So Anna, we're talking about the consent form draft for being used with youth outreach at this point.
Yeah, and that the same form would be used by youth outreach, Hispanic outreach, possibly the one group that Prairie Island has been working with called Project Rousseau, and then also the Prairie Island liaisons. So, people in those groups, all have mentors for our students. And so, the students would have, or the parents would have to fill out this form before we share that information. And that's, there'll be some changes in terms of how, for example, our Prairie Island liaisons obtain information. They've used their previous forms to collect it. And so, we'll be asking them to use this form to do it. But I don't envision that's going to be a problem. We're all trying to do the same thing. It's just a matter of what the form looks like. So I feel confident in that.
So were there significant changes to this form from what the old one looked like?
Yeah, some of the red line changes are there, but
Sure.
the big changes would be under records identified for release.
That list.
And just to give you a quick update, I kind of combined some information in one row there, just because our student management system is kind of built with that in mind. And so if a parent says yes there, then we can share all that information because the kids will be in a particular group where that information can be shared with mentors. And then really in nearly all cases, for example, youth outreach mentors, typically should not have access to health and medical information.
Right.
So I want it on there because there will be some instances when other organizations might need that information.
Sure.
But it doesn't make sense to give parents the choice to share that.
Right.
But there are some examples when the parent might ask for an exception, and then we could redo the form student.
Okay.
So
I know.
what was the action we needed on this tonight?
Yeah, we really don't need any action, but I will come back in July with that section of the procedures. And then I'll also include this as, with the change you suggested, Arlen.
Okay. Anybody else have anything on this? If not, we'll move on to our next item on the agenda, which is
Policy review.
yeah, and we're talking on policies. This is to bring to the school board tonight, is that right? Oh, July 19th. I'm a month off. Thank goodness. I was wondering why we're doing that tonight.
Yeah. And so each year we review a certain set of policies. We don't have to do it before the school year starts, but it would be nice to finalize the review process because we have a whole bunch of other policies to review. Okay. And so one of the policies is policy 413, which is harassment and violence. And so if we could formally review that, if there are any questions or suggestions, we can take a look at it.
Okay. And that one's not on board book. Doesn't
No.
look like, but I can pull it up.
Yeah, all the policies are listed on the website under district, and then policies, procedures, and notices. Reason I do that is that when we start the 400 series, there'll be dozens of policies. Same with the 500 series.
So
413 would be the first.
Over this word by word, or what are we doing here tonight?
Yeah, and really we can just, if there are any questions about that particular policy, you can just go ahead and ask them now, or if you want me to explore something. We don't have any recommended changes at this time, but we wanted to officially, quote unquote, review it.
Which one is it? I'm sorry.
Policy 413.
I wonder if under section 3, item B, where there's a list of all of the different things that are not that you can't discriminate against. Now I see it in there. Never mind. I saw
Okay.
sex and didn't see gender identity and wanted to have them both in there, but it is there.
Okay.
I just can't read.
Sounds good.
The sun has baked my brain today.
Yeah, maybe, Arlen, do you mind if I just briefly just touch the big sections of the policy?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so, the opening statement simply describes the purpose of the policy, and it lists the major categories that, must be free from harassment and violence. Includes like race, color, creed, religion, and, many other groups. With many of the policies with human rights, we include alternative language versions. And so after this is reviewed, I'll have Jamie, our translator, take a look at it and then put it on the website so people who speak Spanish can also access it easily. Roman numeral 3 is a general statement of the policy. And that includes really important information about a variety of things. I looked at it earlier today because, there have been some questions and concerns from about a community member treating a couple of our students in a way that, could be considered, harassing and so I looked at the policy to see if we can do anything in terms of community members who really are not under our jurisdiction. Turns out that, consistent with state law, that we're not able to do something, and it's described in that section I just reviewed. The next section is definitions of assault, harassment, immediately, and some other areas. If we skip through a few pages, Roman numeral 5 is our complaint, grievances, and reports of harassment or violence section. And so a lot with our human rights policies, we've been trying to refer everyone to the same complaint form because, we believe that that we should make that determination if it's bullying or harassment or neither, whatever the case may be. And I think Anna suggested making some changes in that complaint form, maybe at our last meeting. Somebody did. I thought it was Anna. And so, but we can change that in the complaint form. And then you can see when the school district classifies this harassment as abuse. One thing that is really important is that this has to do primarily to do with legal definition of harassment or violence. And so it's a very high standard. And as I think Arlen mentioned at a previous meeting, we had an issue several years ago about whether something was sexual harassment or not. In the end, after consulting with legal counsel, we determined that it would not meet the legal definition of harassment or violence, but we were very concerned with the behavior nonetheless. So I will tell you too that in the next item we're going to be talking proposed changes. The Trump administration changed some of the guidelines for sexual discrimination and harassment, and now the Biden administration is reviewing that whole issue. And so a lot of this might change from the federal level over the next few months. And, as we get the proposed policy changes, then we'll bring it through this committee and the school board for consideration.
I just have something to say about the sexual harassment. I just don't know what we can do on our behalf, but I'm not appeased by what we do. Being a parent of having my daughter sexually harassed, not once, but twice, because clearly this kid, he didn't feel any wrong for his actions because he wasn't made to apologize to her. I think when you have to apologize to somebody, that's you taking personal responsibility for your actions. Like I said, we had problems not once but twice, and before there was a third time, my daughter joined football with this kid, and kind of just showed this boy that she wasn't going to be pushed around and be sexually harassed anymore. And she had to prove like her physical endurance in order to do that. And no children should have to do that. We need to be able to protect them. So, I mean, like I said, I don't know how we can get this to change, but taking personal responsibility by apologizing for the actions done to the victim should be first and foremost in order to recognize the behavior and move forward from it.
What does the district do in terms of like restorative justice practices? Because I know a lot of schools have been working on that in that direction, where then I know that you can't always say like what happens to the perpetrator or alleged perpetrator in an incident, but when there's that restorative justice where people are then together and work through whatever happened, is that something that is happening now or in the works or?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
It depends on the, particular school and administrators in terms of their use of restorative justice. Kind of should happen more naturally at the elementary level.
Right.
But I know Jay, Isaac, and George are stressing that more and more.
Okay.
So I can't say that we do it, extremely well yet, but I know they've made movements in that direction, and that's a good thing. Because just giving somebody a consequence doesn't necessarily change the behavior or address the concerns of the victim or his or her parents. But restorative justice, as would have a stronger impact, potential stronger impact.
Yeah,
that would be a really good, more thorough discussion at the board level as far as what we're doing in terms of student discipline.
Okay.
In terms of suspensions, restorative justice. Typically what happens at the elementary versus the secondary. That'd be a great topic.
maybe that could be a workshop topic.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering too.
That'd be good.
And I want to note that these are children at the end of the day. We're not here to punish them hard. We just want them to understand and remember that these are their peers. They have to learn to get along and be respectful to one another. Because I was on the end of harsh discipline when it came to, I have compassion for the children that obviously who've done wrong to my children, because at the end of the day, they're still kids, and where are they learning this from? We are the structure that's supposed to be setting them to succeed in life, not fail. So, I don't also want to go that route where we're so harsh with punishment that, we're graduating children from the school system to the prison system. That's not the idea. We want these children to be responsible, but yet not crush them.
Yeah, I agree. I saw the headline. I didn't have a chance to read the article because I saw the headline a day after it was posted, but I think it was St. Paul Public Schools or a committee within St. Paul Public Schools recommended not having any suspensions. I know there's been some talk about that at the state level as well. I don't think there's any legislative action promoting that, but it's a big discussion because first, often suspensions are levied against different groups in different ways. Second, there are a lot of questions about whether it's effective. But then on the other side, what do we do? Because we want to change the behavior and we want to take action that will stop the behavior. So I think that would be a fantastic workshop session. Fantastic.
That would be something I would be really interested in gathering their data, like how effective, if other districts are doing it, how effective it's working. Because I can tell you that a lot of the students who are probably fighting inside, which was me back in the day, in school suspension, I didn't even like school. So good, give me suspension. I don't have to go then. Come on.
Video games all day. I mean, that's.
Well, I didn't do video games, but I think we're in a position and an opportunity where we can really change and be different.
Right.
So I like these ideas. Thank you.
Yeah, Kim Corey and I were chatting, I think in the spring of the year, and she told me about an incident that there were 2 or 3 kids involved in some vandalism at Jefferson School. And so, she met with the students and maybe even the parents. I don't remember the details, but, simply told them, we're not going to suspend you. And so I think that was a big surprise to the kids and probably the parents. But there are better ways of addressing those kinds of things. We always Karsten always wants, a possible suspension as a potential consequence. But that doesn't mean that we should always, revert to that right away. Sometimes there are better ways of handling it. We could also have that discussion during the workshop when and then review disciplinary suspension data for the previous year. I mean, it's just so naturally tied together.
Okay, so we're not recommending any changes at this time, is that correct? We probably got to get moving on here.
Yeah, I think we can go on to the next one.
Yeah, I don't see any changes that I would say.
So the next one is student discipline, which is policy 506. We base our policy on as with most of our policies, on what the School Board Association recommends. I have not seen any proposed changes from MSBA, and so we're recommending that we just leave it as it is. Again, I'll quickly go through this. The first section, again, we have the purpose. We offer this policy in other languages, general statement of policy. And then Roman numeral 4 talks about who's responsible for what with student discipline. And so I think that's an important section. Let me just scroll through here to hit some of the highlights. Starting on page 4, Roman numeral 7, you can see the Code of Student Conduct, and it's essentially a lengthy list of policy violations, that could lead to discipline. They are purposely broad in nature, when it's appropriate, and then more specific if there's some sort of legal precedence. And so you can see some different ways of writing that based on what the MSBA suggests. And then the next section, Roman numeral 8, you see the disciplinary action options. And so once again, there's a lengthy list of the different kinds of things that administrators can do to address policy violations. There's some other sections too that have to do with dismissing kids from a class, or removal from school, some procedures in terms of suspending kids and those kinds of things. But I think I've covered most of the most important things anyway.
All right, anybody want to do any more on that, or can we move on to the next one? And I would encourage everybody to, I see we're looking at trying to put this to the board on July 19th. We don't meet before then, or do we?
We do not currently have a meeting scheduled. We could certainly choose to do so.
And it's, I assume, essential to have this done on by the 19th?
No, it really doesn't have to be done on the 19th. If we do make some changes, if it's urgent, then we'd want to know what those changes might be in July so that we can go through the process of reviewing them at the board level. Typically, though, unless the School Board Association's made a recommended change, we can review policies and then implement them for the following year. So it'd be the 22-23 school year, unless there's something urgent that has to be done right away.
I guess I'm just wondering, as for tonight, Anna or Nikki, have you read through these policies for tonight from start to finish?
Yeah, I mean, I skimmed it. I mean, I actually have read these policies because they're like in the student handbook. So, for my own kids, I've read through them. But of course, that's been a little while. So yeah, I mean, I've skimmed it, but I haven't probably read every single word carefully. Nothing jumped out to me immediately other than, things like, I mean, I think it is important to have all of the options, I guess, for, discipline, but, I'm hoping that we use things like suspension and expulsion and, as last resort type things. And I think, I don't think this is currently an issue for Red Wing, but there were issues in some schools where they had a zero tolerance policy about things like weapons. So a kid might have like a plastic knife that somehow, like still fell under their weapons policy, so like a 5-year-old is getting expelled for, having a sword as part of their Halloween costume, because the way the policies were written, that there was no gray area. There was no room for an administrator to interpret it and say, okay, legitimately, this is not a real concern. I don't think that's necessarily an issue, that Red Wing has at the moment. I think everything is, there's enough room for administration to make those judgment calls when, when is it truly a threat and when was it, an accidental type thing, or, when is a weapon not a weapon, those types of things. But those were just kind of the thoughts that I had as I kind of skimmed through it, of like, just having heard about these like on the news from other districts and other things that are happening that, oh, I should make sure that that's not an issue for us. But I didn't see any language in the policy itself that I had issue with.
I guess we're just running in. We aren't going to get a whole lot accomplished here today. I don't know how much you want to spend on each one of these and when the timeline on this, so we get to the other stuff here on the policies for tonight. I don't want to rush us through stuff that we should discuss. If we don't discuss it, that's not the answer either. But I've skimmed through it. I'm kind of okay with it because I've been through here enough years.
Yeah, and really,
in detail on each one of these, or can we could come back on the 19th if there's any issues. That's also our next committee meeting should be on the 19th, same night as our second board meeting of the month. It's nice to have a little lead ahead, but read through them more, and if there's any issues, then we can bring it up here at the committee and address it at the board meeting to slow things down if we have to. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we could even, if we did spend some time on July 19th at the committee meeting, then we could just formally review them at the first meeting in August.
Okay.
So, that's certainly a possibility too.
So
Should we
if
on that?
Right, I'd like to move, if there's no other issues on 506 that we're doing, I guess. Is there any drastic changes to 514?
Yeah, really for everything listed, the 514, 522, 524, and 1000, there are not any suggested changes. But Nikki mentioned earlier, there might be a potential change in terms of policy 524, which is student technology, as far as, including a provision saying that we would have the ability to review student email accounts if there is present danger, as far as somebody hurting himself or herself or somebody else. So, but that's something I'd need to review with legal counsel. And so I can do that just based on this conversation.
And we could do that at any meeting, make the change on that.
Yeah.
And certainly want to make sure that we do things as much as we should without overstepping our bounds.
Right. The one thing we may want to look at, just to familiarize ourselves with it, would be policy 1000. Because that is directly related to our work on equity. Do you mind, Arlen, if we do that?
Well, I think we should just kind of jump over to that if we can.
Sure. So by law, the school district needs to have an inclusive education plan, and it should be reviewed every 6 years. What I converted it, instead of calling it a plan, I put the verbiage in a policy just so that we can kind of review it more formally. We don't have an extra plan that we're looking at. There's a 9-year difference between when we adopted it and then when we revised it last, which would have been about a year ago. We reviewed a lot of this information administratively, but not formally through the board committee. But we also agreed that we would look at it every year. And I think that's a really good change. So it's on our list for yearly review. And again, this is the policies to establish and maintain a written plan to assure an inclusive education program. And then once again, you can see our general statement of plan. And really it's focused a lot on employing a curriculum developed and delivered so that students and staff gain an understanding and appreciation of, and then it lists several different areas. And Jess is the person who is responsible for much of the plan, and so you can see her responsibilities as far as reviewing annual curriculum adoption, curriculum maps, and training. And then the district curriculum advisory committee helps implementation of the plan. So anyway, I just wanted to present that to you to see if you had any questions about that. I feel really good about Jess having the responsibility for overseeing this area. Obviously, because she's a director of teaching and learning, so that's in her wheelhouse to start with. But she does, have active participation of several different committees that could look at this information. One thing that really came out about 2 years ago was the adoption of the Wonders curriculum. And, that really upped our game in terms of our inclusive education programming for our grades K through 5. Now, Anna and Nikki, I think you're on the equity team.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I don't know, have you had a chance to look at curriculum issues or not?
We haven't in the time that I've been on it. We were looking at, I can never remember what it's called, but that document where it was kind of like a self-assessment checklist of the district.
Mm-hmm.
That was the main thing that we've been working on since I joined the board.
Okay. So what I'm gonna do is just, and I don't know if it'd be from there or from the district advisory council or maybe both, but just to make sure that we're reviewing curriculum issues and programs, through one or both of those committees, because it's good to get the broad net of perspective.
I just have, this all looks great on paper, but it's a whole other story on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see us with our actions own up to what this looks like. But that's going to take time. Also, I know the participation in the past with the Native American Parent Committee hasn't always been consistent, but we're hoping to change things like that with the current Native American Parent Committee. You have to understand I can only speak through an Indigenous view of why our people don't want to join and keep it consistent. It's set up as in a Washichu way, and it's it's why our children aren't thriving inside the system. the adults don't want to come back and be bound by that either. So allowing us to kind of set a structure for us, and things like that's great too. But I think like getting more, like, I think it's our job as a district to maybe, I know it's different with the Native American Parent Committee because we have we get funds for it, you know, money helps do a lot of things, you know, but like maybe for us to create space for these other diverse groups to have parent committees match the children, the student body committees too. And then also, and it's not just limited, I think we should probably, I probably don't want to call it like what they've called it in the past, a PTA, parent, or what was just a general parent committee of all, you know, everyone. Because at the end of the day, it's nice to identify our children as their ethnicity and their culture, but we, again, have to make sure that we all are on the same page and getting along. So I think in the first steps maybe of getting this, what on paper to be an actionable step inside the district would be maybe start holding space for these other diverse groups with their parents and their students. I know the Black Student Union has formed and stuff. I will just never, I had the greatest memory of that one group. It wasn't limited to the Native American students. It was every student, and it was called One Nation Under a Groove. I will never forget that because I've made long lasting friendships with those people. And still today, like I don't know if any of you know Aretha, maybe Karsten, you do, but Aretha was maybe a year younger than me. And I just seen her at my uncle's funeral. And, you know, it was like when we were in high school, we picked up where we just left off. You know, these are the connections. We need to be able to create the space for the children and the parents. So that would be like my, I don't want to jump in with too much, you know, start out little by little, getting these parents, because when we set the space for them, they're the ones doing the work. They're the ones telling us, you know, it's great having a Native American literature class, but through an Indigenous perspective, we are an oral language tradition, you know, so this would have been a great consultation with the Native American parents before this went forward, you know, just to get ideas on how the structure is set by us. Not saying that it couldn't have happened, but let's have more oral traditions inside this literature class as well, you know, things like that.
Nikki, what was the name of the group that you participated in? It sounded like in high school.
We named it One Nation Under a Groove because we all liked music. And so it was just, you know, it just kind of covered it. Uncle Paul, I think, led it. Or he started it. He started it and led it, I believe. I can pick his brain for more information on the district aspect, you know, of how it was structured and, you know, things like that, because I can only remember just as a student on how that made me feel. And, you know, like I said, made long lasting friendships because of that group and with diverse people, not just Native Americans.
That was One Nation Under a Groove?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's an Ice Cube song, so we just picked that. We went with it. But since we all liked music and we thought it was a great name, that's just what it was called.
Okay. And that was, as far as you know, it was sponsored by the school or sponsored by Prairie Island, or?
No, I don't think it was from Prairie Island because it was. I'll ask Uncle Paul and then I'll get the information back to you. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds intriguing, I think.
Okay.
Great. Well, how about if at least in the notes, we can say that we reviewed policies 413 and 506, and then we'll review the others in July. Does that sound reasonable? Or do you think we should consider that we've reviewed them at tonight's meeting?
514 was the bullying, yes.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about policy 514.
And then, sorry, I have too many pages open. Yeah. Do you see changes, Nikki, that you would add to 1,000, or just that? I mean, I agree with you that, you know, a policy and action are different, but in terms of the policy itself, did you see changes?
The policy, I think it looks great, to be honest, but like I said, you know, it's very different than what's on the inside. And so I would like to maybe, you know, keep this and adopt this of how it is, and maybe start working on those particular things slowly, you know, because we can't dive in. We have to, I'm a firm believer of building things from the ground up just to see, because I don't like when things go awry and then we have too many things on our plate, then it's like, and then I can't focus very well. And then, you know, it's like, oh, I just want to give up. And, you know, I'm just trying to avoid all that. So I think if we take baby steps by building up to that, and like I said, Rome wasn't built in a day, and we need help. Why not reach out to the parents and then the students, and then they can like essentially create something, and you know, we just got to create the space, I think, for them. So,
You know, really, and I hate to say everything should be a workshop topic, but really this is another equity related workshop topic. You know, it's essentially ensuring that our curriculum meets the needs of all kids. And, you know, so that might be another avenue, in addition to what you mentioned, Nikki, in terms of involving a lot more people. We could also review it at a school board workshop again. We have a lot of workshops.
But parents aren't allowed to join the workshop, are they?
Yeah, typically not. I think what we would want to do is go through the parent groups first.
Mm-hmm.
Hear from a lot of different perspectives, student groups and parent groups, and then take it to the board for discussion and review.
Yeah, I think involving the people that this affects is, this is what I said. I don't like this is when I worked for Parada. I don't like upper management office people dictating and telling me what's going to work in my field work job. And especially when I have Dakota values that like really influence my job on the field. So I would like them to come in and watch me work and see where I come from before they draft the policies for me. So I'm a very firm believer of getting in on the inside and getting the input from the people that this affects.
Yeah, one thing, it's with the safe learning plan for next year, schools are obligated, some schools are obligated to go through this rigorous process where we get first public comment, which we've already done, and then also we engage with community partners about the plan. And so we want to identify those groups and be really aggressive in terms of involving a lot of people. And really that's the same model that we could use for a lot of this work, including you know, the plan that's part of policy 1000. I think that's what you're suggesting too, Nikki. Even if it's One Nation Under a Groove, or the Black Student Union, the parent group for Native American Native kids, you know, or combinations thereof. So what should I say for what policies we reviewed tonight? I have four.
I would say that this one we reviewed. Isn't that 1000?
Yeah, I can include that, and then we just have to keep each other on continually reviewing this work, you know, so it's not just a one-time deal. Like Nikki said, you know, it's the actions that are important. Policy is good, but the actions are more important. Any others that we can quickly look through, or?
Well, we have the ones that you had proposed changes to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think maybe we should jump to those. Do you think, Garland?
That sounds good to me. Or you mean 613, 522, 503?
Yeah.
Yep, no, that sounds good.
I can find the right page. I have way too many tabs open.
Is the first one student attendance 503? Okay, can I just mention something just based off of the Native American parent group? I know that with truancy, I know a lot of our Native parents are not happy about it going through family services for Prairie Island because they say once you get put in family services, it's really hard to get your kids out of there. So I know that they have had a problem with the truancy going through family services. And so maybe that's something that we could maybe look at and bring to the Native American Parent Committee in the future of, you know, or just, I don't know, but I just know that they have a problem with once their children are truant, they go right into family services. And that doesn't happen here with any other group. It doesn't go to family services if they're truant, right?
Well, we have to follow, we have to report through the county. So are you talking about the Prairie Island Family Services Group? Or are you talking about the counties?
No, Prairie Island. They don't like how it gets into family services because it's hard to get our kids out of family services. And if you knew the conflict between our members and family services, it's pretty high. So I don't know if this is something that if it has to, so whether non Prairie Island students, it goes through the county. I don't know if this is something we want to maybe look at keeping our through the county too, like the same. I don't know, but like I said, maybe we can maybe Karsten, you and I can discuss this with the Native Parent Committee and just kind of dig deeper on what their feelings are and thoughts are on this.
Yeah, I think that's a critically important topic, actually. Yeah, I'm gonna have to reread through the policy, and I may check with the School Board Association to see what our legal obligations are. But it doesn't seem right that, one group of kids would be referred to one entity and another group of kids would be referred to another entity. So yeah, I think that's a really important one, Nikki. Yeah, so I think maybe you and I can chat later this week about that issue, and I'll let you know what I find out.
Okay.
Like you say, we can run it by the parent committee.
We're on 503. I had some questions on 503 also in regards to all the different changes on excused absences. We were deleting some of them out of there. They're items 6 through 15 and were taken out of there. Let's see if I can find where it is here.
Just the numbers were changed.
Attendance procedures B 1B starting with 6 through 15. I guess we got deleted a bunch of stuff.
Just the numbers were deleted because the cultural traditions and teachings was added in, and then religious traditions were added in. So then the numbers didn't line up anymore. So just the numbers got deleted.
Numbers, not the whole item.
Right.
Well, they aren't really deleted. They should be changed and not deleted.
Well, when you do
No.
when you do change tracking in a document like this, when you like delete a 5 and type in a 6, it just saves it as that. Like you don't really have the option with change tracking in a document.
Okay, well, I guess I'm not very professional in understanding that stuff in word processing. I just trying to make it flow and understand the whole thing here. So maybe I need a red line version or something.
Is the, are you looking at the red line version?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And of course, I'm looking at the clean copy.
Yeah, so when you look at it, it's got deleted, 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 but it's just the
Oh.
numbers that were deleted. But it makes it look like that was kind of my thought too. The first time I opened it, Arlen was like,
Oh, yeah.
what did we delete? But it was just it's just the notations.
Yeah, so
like item 8, religious traditions, is not deleted. It's just going to be a different number. Is that?
Yeah.
right.
And that was one we actually talked about before and is being added in here possibly.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think this reflects the suggestions from committee members a couple of months ago.
And then I also had on 503 page 6 of the policy, we refer to a middle school in there.
Mm.
Let's see if I can.
Oh yeah, in section, what would it be, 4A, 3 days if the child is in elementary school, 3 or more class periods on 3 days if the child is in middle school, junior high school, or high school.
Yeah, that's a good catch.
And I was going to make a suggestion that we don't know what grade configuration is going to be going on forward. Maybe instead of that, use I got to pull this up exactly where it is. I'm not finding it yet. But anyway, use grade 6 through 12 or something. If you wanted to include what we previously did as a middle school, then you'd say grade 6 through 12.
Right. Yeah, or say,
Or
secondary
7 to
student.
12 or something, rather than referring to a specific type of school.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll look through the recommended policy from the School Board Association to see if it specifically says middle school. And if it does, then I'll clarify with them what that means. Yeah, I agree with you. It should say either the grades or say elementary versus secondary, or, it should say something that's meshes with what we're doing here. So yeah, thank you for that catch.
Anybody else got any input on that at this time?
No, I thought that one
We're
looked
running
good.
out of time here.
Nope, I agree, Arlen. Thank you.
We got school board procedures coming up tonight in the school board packet. Is that really ready to come to them?
Well, and actually, is it 5:45 already?
Yes.
Yep.
Pete's sake, I thought I had more time. No wonder you guys are worried about the timing. If we can, well, maybe if I could just briefly talk about 522 and 613. The student sex non-discrimination is completely based on what the MSBA told us, and that is based on the Trump administration's changes in the policy. My concern with it is that it makes it even harder to put in a claim that's justified. And so I don't like the policy, but we need to adopt it. And then I'm hoping that we can have the federal government make some changes, and then we'll bring back those proposed changes as soon as we can.
Okay.
So I don't like the proposed changes, but during some training, our lawyer said, we need to adopt, the Trump administration's revisions, because it's federal law. And then graduation requirements is based on what Principal Nemenich shared with me. So that's where that came from.
Okay.
But if I could jump into the school board procedures, there were some questions raised last Tuesday about who should be the Section 504 and ADA coordinator. Amy French understandably expressed some concerns because she doesn't have a special education background, whereas Sherry Johnson and Marsha Walker would. And so my suggestion for tonight is not to approve that document, to actually remove it from the agenda, so that we can spend a little more time analyzing that, and then I could bring that issue to this committee in July.
Okay.
Are you guys okay with just taking another month?
I am.
Okay.
I do want to bring one other thing up on there. I see we're trying to incorporate the school board member pay into the school board procedures. I really think, I know it's nice to set out a long-term plan, but I think that should stay out of there totally, because it's up to the board each year what they want to do. That's personal opinion. It's not a procedure. It's just telling somebody this is what the school board's possibly will be paid the following year. This is what's recommended the following. That's just my gut.
And I'm okay either way. Nikki and Anna, do you have a preference one way or the other?
Not really, but I see what Arlen's saying, and the rest of the document is pretty, I think would stay the same, but that one would have potential changes every year. And so then that might mean that you have to review the whole document. And so then that might just get kind of cumbersome and,
Slow us down.
Yeah. So, from that end, I could see taking it out. But I think it is good to have that document somewhere so that there is that plan for us to be able to reference again. Like, what was it we said we were going to do, But yeah, maybe not have it as part of that whole big packet, because everything else in the packet seems pretty...
Should be the same from year to year.
Yeah, like it shouldn't really vary.
I'm okay. Nikki, are you okay with that if we pulled that out and then brought it back in July?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
So
I'll tell you what, Anna and I had better get down to the training
Gonna
center.
walk across the building.
that
Yeah.
being said, I'm going to adjourn this meeting.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Kind of funny. I thought we had another hour.
Oh.
So I was thinking
Yeah,
3:45.
well, some of the meetings are like they do start
Ms. Buck,
Here.
Mr. Derricks? Mr. Derricks? We see you.
Here,
Okay.
here.
Ms. Ostendorf?
Here.
Ms. Tower?
Here.
Ms. Tift?
Here.
And Chair is here. All 7 board members are present. We'll go ahead and stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance together.
Flag is right behind.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Jennifer is going to read the vision and mission of the Redmond Public Schools.
The mission of the Redmond Public Schools is to educate and inspire all students as they realize their full potential and become respectful, responsible, and productive citizens.
Thank you. The agenda for this evening is posted in our board book. Does anybody have any changes or additions to make this evening? All right, I'm seeing none, so I will look for a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Motion made by Holly,
Second.
seconded by Anna. Any other discussion? All right, we'll take a roll call vote then, starting with Ms. Tift.
Aye.
Mr. Bryan.
Aye.
Ms. Buck.
Aye.
Mr. Derricks.
Aye.
Ms. Ostendorf.
Aye.
Ms. Howard.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. So the agenda passes as presented, 7-0. All right, first is the educational plan. And now that we are meeting in person again, we do have it on a board behind me, which will always be here in our presence when we meet. It's also always listed in our board book, and it helps us to remember and keep at the forefront what our goals are as we move forward. Next on the agenda is recognitions and upcoming events. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share? Holly.
Thank you. I heard from somebody who's happy and running around and happy to be there. So congratulations on the BLAST staff and everybody for putting that together. It's really important, and I was really happy to hear it out of the blue. Someone texted me, so thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. It's good to hear. Other recognitions or upcoming events? All right, seeing none, I do want to take this time to talk just briefly about a loss that we've experienced in our community this week. Our Red Wing 2021 graduate, Sammy Creasy, passed away this last week. She just graduated, and it's impossible to put into words or make sense of such a horrific loss, and our sympathies are sent to all who mourn her loss. I didn't know Sammy well, but I do know that she had an infectious smile that lit up any room. I saw her at the levee when she was taking prom photos, and you couldn't help but notice her smile, her giggle, her laugh, and how much she was adored by her friends. And so I know that so many in our community are hurting right now. And many in our community and many in our district, our teachers, our staff. It shakes us all to the core. And I want to just remind us to hold each other close, to be kind to one another, and share as many smiles as you can in honor of a girl who always had a smile. And so I'll just take a moment of silence, please, in honor and memory of Samantha Creasy. Thank you, everybody. Go ahead, Holly.
Thank you. And I also wanted to acknowledge that it's my understanding her mother works for the district. And so just knowing that and how hard it is for her family, and we really appreciate the work that she's done, and she's in our thoughts. as one of our family members of the district. So
And she's a paraprofessional at the Caldwell Family Center.
yeah, so we're thinking of
I do know that her visitation is Wednesday evening from 4 to 8 at Mon, and her funeral is at 11 a.m. at the Church of St. Joe's on Thursday. More information can be found on the Mon website. And our sympathies go out to you, the Creasy family. I do pledge our support, our district support. We've got counselors here, we've got staff that are willing to be here for our students and our staff. And so we'll just put that out there as well, that you're supported. And we just need you to let us know and reach out, and we'll be there for you. With that, it's hard to move on from such a heartfelt and difficult loss, but I couldn't start the meeting or have a meeting with that kind of weighing on all of our shoulders, and it's here in the room and we feel it definitely. So we definitely needed to acknowledge that. Next on our agenda is public comment. We always enjoy and respect and welcome public comment. We expect comments to be 3 minutes per person or less. We may or may not talk about a public comment or topic that was brought up at our meeting, but we'll always provide a response. And we expect comments to remain respectful and appropriate and not identify any current or former students, their families, or staff members by name. I have one individual for public comment this evening, and Mr. Bose, I'll turn it over to you.
I think you're supposed to come here.
And do we turn
The camera is.
the bottom there?
So let's see, right. Thank you. Oh, there it is. Okay, I trust the volume's on.
Yes.
Happy summer, everybody. Thank you, Chair Rowe, for the comments. I would be remiss if I didn't express my own condolences. I'm deeply struck, as many of my colleagues are. We've been in communicate with one another about the loss of Samantha, and particularly for the class of 2021. The previous year, they lost another classmate similar. So this is a class that understands pain, but they also understand celebration and happiness, and they will be strong. And so I have them in my thoughts from here through the rest of the summer, and heartfelt to the entire family and community. Beyond that issue, I intended for weeks to address this body at some point this summer and merely offer my gratitude. As a parent and as an employee for this district, I'm not speaking as a union member, I'm not speaking as a department representative or anything else, but tonight, just on my own behalf and as the parent of one student still in high school here, and on really for a lot of others, gratitude for the past 16 months of leadership from the district, from the board. I may not always like or understand every decision by our board or administration, from superintendent on down through each building, but I appreciate all the effort and work that's been taking place. My wife works in another district. I pay very close attention to what schools are doing around the state, around our region, around the country. I listen, and I think about what we're doing. And I've been extremely pleased to work for this district and very pleased with the leadership from the top down. And so please know that that's heartfelt as well. This has been an extremely difficult time for the United States of America and the whole world. And I'd like to think we're turning the corner. I think there'll probably be some hiccups and problems in the fall. I think everybody recognizes that. It's a pleasure to work with colleagues that I have and administration and everybody. But my biggest gratitude really tonight is to go out to those I think who have been on the front line and have done the most for our community and for us. And this has been the custodial staff. I've talked to a lot of our colleagues across the district. And so it's not just me here at Red Wing High School. Everybody here knows the face of Red Wing custodial staff has always been Al Hartnick for the past 40 some years. But for Carol and Mike and Val, and all those that I know the names of here at the high school, and for all those across the district. I just can't believe the amount of effort that they've had to put forth, and the extra effort that they've gone. And I really hope that there's some way that the district can find to congratulate, to reward, to go the extra mile for all of the extra effort that they made this entire 16 months. It was one thing for us teachers to have to clean desks and put up our own plastic shields or something like that on our desks if we wanted. But it was just an incredible effort by custodial staff. And I hope that there's further recognition for all of their effort, because it's an incredibly good job market out there right now. And I know a lot of them will be easily hired elsewhere if we don't thank them and reward them as best you can. And so I took a Monday night in my summer to come out and say thank you to all of you, and recognize the positivity of working in ISD 256, and really, really emphasize my thanks, my appreciation, my respect for our custodial staff the past 16 months. I mean, that graduation, all the chairs, the work, every veterans assembly I get to sit through, any assemblies we get to attend, all of the evening activities, they're there to pick up and put away and clean up and everything, and every day coming to school. So Red Wing High School is premier, and the whole district is very fortunate with our custodial staff. So that's my 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
We all feel the same way.
Yeah. Okay.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah.
Definitely welcome to stay if you'd like.
I'm gonna pass on. Thanks.
First on our agenda this evening is Learn and Earn. And Bert Murphy and Devin Klatt are here to give us a presentation about the program.
Is there a way that this is projected, or do I just look at it?
We all have it in our,
So there's no
Oh,
projection.
you can, yeah.
I don't have to, I can just talk, but I,
For you to be on camera, you'll just have to turn the camera on there, but the sound will automatically go. Do you see how to?
yes, I'm visible.
Yep, there you are.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for giving us this opportunity to introduce you more formally to the Learn and Earn Youth Skills Training Program. This is a Department of Labor and Industry grant that was funded in 2018. And before I launch into this, I want to acknowledge the leadership of Superintendent Anderson, who helped us launch this endeavor to provide meaningful worksite learning experiences for students that are 16, 17, and 18 in Goodhue County. The template you're looking at is the original template we created to exemplify the way in which this would be a countywide collaborative. So far, we've been able to engage 5 or 6 school districts across the county. This is our 3rd year, and honestly, it has been extremely important to have the active support and implementation of Red Wing High School, particularly the leadership of Mick Wendland, and the high participation rate of students from Red Wing High. They have been great participants, great contributors, as well as our employers. We have 8 Red Wing employers, but in total 14 to 16 manufacturing employers, and we are expanded in our year 3 and year 4, the coming year, to agribusiness. And we would like to engage more students in that work. So this is somewhat off script because there's no way I could go through those slides in 2 to 3 minutes. But let me just say that the students participate in the fall semester in an OSHA 10 training at Minnesota State College Southeast. I work with them across the fall semester in a student cohort session, taking a deeper dive into their career exploration interests. And by the way, I should have introduced myself. I am a community and economic development practitioner with specialty in regional economic competitiveness with a focus on education, training, and workforce development. So I really enjoy bringing the students together from across the county. They are the future workforce for the region, and helping them identify, articulate, give meaning to what their interests might be in either continued education and training or employment. So the components that you can see on the slide are partnerships with the Department of Labor and Industry, the school districts, manufacturers, and now agribusiness, Minnesota State College Southeast. And our employer partners put in an enormous effort in paperwork, in getting approval from DLI to be safe places, to have put together programs that are considered a meaningful experience. They pay the students $10 an hour. So the way we do this, in the fall, they do the OSHA 10 training, preparing them for worksite learning. I do a deeper dive in career exploration. Then we do industry tours. And this year we did a dozen virtual industry tours, and they were actually more intimate than being overwhelmed in a large manufacturing site. And they were very, very effective. And then in January, late January, the students are given their first worksite placement. It's for February and March. They do it during the school day from 7:30 to 9:30 in the morning. And it's usually 3 mornings a week. So it's essentially about 40 hours in February and March, and then again, a second placement. So they're introduced to very different environments. And maybe one is in Lake City and one is in Red Wing, one is in Cannon Falls, and another might be in Goodhue. And they have the possibility of earning up to $800. And it's almost more important, the relationships they build. It's been transformative. Students are confident. They feel a greater sense of self-empowerment because of the experience. I do want to say that it has been a challenge to recruit students of color. And so I'm bringing that to your attention because I'm prioritizing that this year. And there's tremendous gravity to not being able to recruit students of color into this program, because these internships are stepping stones for school, for tuition reimbursement, and for full employment. And so far we have 3 students fully employed with our regional employers, Central Research Lab, Gemini, and Rydell. So do you think is that about it?
After they've graduated.
After they've graduated.
Employed by those 3
Mhm.
entities.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
It's fantastic.
It is really fantastic. You know, on average, it costs $4,000 to $6,000 in human resource costs to recruit one person. And so $400 to $800 to end up being introduced to a cohort of 20 and potentially 30 students is high value. And by the way, I should mention that Red Wing Shoe Company has been an incredible supporter. Many of the students need to wear steel-toed boots, have to wear a helmet if they're going to do any kind of welding. And the shoe has given our employers a 50% discount to pay for the students' boots, which are very expensive. And they pay the difference. I mean, it's a wonderful win-win-win, to sound contrite, but so you can see the 8 Red Wing companies, but we have Lake City employer partners, Zumbrota, Goodhue, and Cannon Falls, and I'm always looking to expand those partnerships in manufacturing and now agribusiness. Is that probably, should I wrap it up?
Very well said.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you very much. Because I really want you to hear from our Red Wing High student, Devin Klatt, who has a wonderful story to tell.
Before you leave, there's 3 people who have questions.
Oh, well, terrific. Yeah.
So
Mhm.
will Anna's in the queue, so we'll start with that.
Good.
So I was just wondering how you determine which students will go to which location. Is that through that deep dive that you were talking about of figuring out what they want to do after high school and that kind of thing?
Yes, well, in most cases, student identify an occupation or a profession that they're familiar with, but they actually know very little about. And so we take a deeper dive into the reality of what that occupation or position entails. And so when it comes time for a placement, by then they may want to recalibrate. I work with each of the students to determine what would be the best location. And there are many qualifying factors, like what is their transportation situation? You know, how can they get to and from there during the school day? You know, things like that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Mhm.
you. Mr. Bryant?
Thank you. I'm very excited about this. I've been excited about this for several years because of the need that not every student may want to go to college.
Mhm. Mhm.
But we still need people to do, fill positions within the region as you do. And I like that. 3 is a great starting point. I'd like to see that expanded. Hopefully, we can get more positions filled, because whether you can walk or drive around, there's many people are looking for jobs, employment, or employers are looking for employment. So I've talked to Mr. Wedland a little bit about this too, and I like this idea. I really do. I don't want to run a business in Goodhue.
Oh, you do?
So if you want to contact me, we insure farms and stuff like that. I'm
Oh,
pretty excited.
Thank you.
I have contacts at A Partners in Goodhue too.
Mm-hmm.
Just reach out to me and we'll be happy to see what we can do on that end too, because anything to help the students out to get a little bit more information on what they want to do in their life, because this is high school is the first part of their life. The next part is either going to college or the workforce.
Yes.
And anything we can do to prepare our students is the right thing to do. So.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that invitation. I just want to underscore that all the employer partners that participated in the virtual industry tours, they gave very personal stories of their own career paths, how they ended up where they are. The majority of them were engineers, and the majority of our students they were interested in engineering occupations. And so that was a reality check that was personal, that was local. And the students also gain a very new perspective about the incredible companies that are here in our county and in our city. And they didn't realize that we have world-class global companies here. So it has expanded their horizons and their perspectives enormously, and they're charged up about it and proud. It's really rewarding.
I do insurance, not very boring.
I see.
But younger people, if you get in there young, you can, it's just like any other field. You're looking for the next generation to come in and fill those spots.
Well, if I can share, one of our first year students from Zimbrota, Mazeppa, was placed in an internship at Gemini Sign Products, and she loved it. And so she did a summer internship there and then applied for a machine specialist, an entry-level position. And within less than a year, she trained and applied for their printer etcher position. She is now proudly in charge of the printer etcher room. And she has been able to buy her mother's house. I mean, it's extraordinary. And she's 19. She is beaming with, feeling confident and proud and grateful. So, thanks. Is there another question?
Nikki is in the queue.
Wow. I'm speechless about that last. This is exactly what we needed. Because college isn't for everyone. Definitely wasn't for me. I wish I would have had this in place when I was in high school, about 23 years ago, 23 or 24, I can't remember. But I would have definitely landed probably in the position or closer to the position that I ended up absolutely loving. But with your request of a more diverse, if you can, this is the thing, the paper and explanation's great, but is there like a video or something? Because I can bring this back to Prairie Island and we can try and get recruits from that way, but we're more of an oral, our membership doesn't really look, too much detail in writing, and it's just for those, that's the type of communication that. And then also my husband is with the is Hispanic, so we're also very involved in the Hispanic community too. So if this is like got Spanish translation, we could definitely be resources for you in those two communities if you would like. So just if you want, you can email me or contact me afterwards, and we can go from there on how we can get more diverse recruitment for students.
Well, thank you very much for that invitation, Nikki. I have been wanting to engage the Tribal Council and Prairie Island in any way possible. The tribal liaison that was here did not know about this program. And so that's when I became aware that we needed to do a different kind of outreach.
Mm-hmm.
I can send you a link to a 5-minute video in their own voices.
Oh,
we made
yeah, wonderful. And I can get you to that. I have a secret doorway into that tribal council. That president is my sister. So anytime you need a reach, just give me a holler and I'll help you out.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And Superintendent Anderson.
Yeah, just first of all, thank you, Burke, for all of your work. It's really been a true collaborative effort led by you to make this happen. I just want to remind everyone that the Learn and Earn program is one important component of our flight paths programming. And so we have a lot of other unpaid internships throughout the district. And but Burke is really focused on the Learn and Earn aspect.
And I forgot to mention that I am on the Winger Flight Paths Committee as well as the District Advisory Committee. So, and I work very closely with Mick and appreciate that. Thank you all. I really want you to hear from one of our shining stars. Thanks. I think that Lisa is going to pull it up.
Okay. Do I need to flip through them or?
No, she'll scan for you.
Okay.
You should be able to see yourself.
Yeah.
Can you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my name is Devin Klatt, and I had an internship at Rydell Skates last quarter. So this is just like the presentation I did for the class. So here are some of my goals and expectations. I expected a production manufacturing setting because that's what we talked about in the virtual tours. And I just didn't think there would be as much hands-on work as there was. And then some of my goals going in were to learn more about like job options, and then just to help me figure out a plan for my future, like by learning more about the industry and just more about working in general. Here are some of the things that I witnessed and then some things that I did. There's human resources, there's marketing manager, there's a custom designer, there's a production manager, and there's just general production. That was like just general jobs around the production plant. And this is all like making roller skates, because that's what Rydell makes, and ice skates. Some of like the basic things I did was cutting material, that's like the leather and the plastic the shoes are made of. There's marking, that's like marking up the cut material. There is assembling the wheels that go on the roller skates. There's printing little labels that help identify the different pieces of the shoes. There's order processing, that's like taking an order from a company or a person and then printing it out so the people in the plant can read it and make the shoes. There's unloading shipping containers. That's when they get just a large shipment of shoes from their foreign partners and then sell them. There's updating spreadsheets. I was like keeping track of information on other companies, like their competitors, that they have to keep track of. And there's moving orders throughout the production steps. Each one was like in a bin. You just had to shift it around so the different steps could get done. And here are some of the highlights. I really liked tracing and cutting pieces for the custom shoes because it was just like a really fun, like craft kind of thing to do. Like you literally cut apart the boots. It was kind of cool. And then it was updating the competitor information spreadsheet. That was cool because one of the people that worked there and I just went through other companies' websites and like took notes on them. And then something else I did just throughout the entire internship was trying to make every process I did very efficient, like because they have to, they're like 3 or 4 years like backed up with all their orders. So yeah, it's kind of necessary to do them quickly. Here's some things that are surprising to me. They let you listen to music and other audio stuff just while you work, which I thought was kind of cool because you can like multitask. And then the machinery age, like all their equipment it looked very old, and that's kind of cool because they're just really high quality machines that get used a lot. And then some of the methods were just kind of surprising because I've like never seen what it's like to make a shoe or like a boot that they used before. Let me see. I don't need to go into the specific ones for that, so I can go to the next slide. Thank you. And then being in a professional work setting, there were the soft skills and those things I kind of learned with the soft skills course through the tech college. That really helped me. And using them in my internship was different than the kind of stuff I'd learned in school because it's just a completely different setting. And then something else I noticed was that the people I remember the most were those who were friendly and like talked a lot. And then I can like apply that to my own professional relationships when I have a job later. And then my plans before the internship and after, I don't really have any set plans yet. But then the experience can help me make a more informed choice because I'm like more aware of positions and occupations that I didn't know about before. Then my plans moving forward would be to attend college for some kind of engineering, probably mechanical, maybe aerospace or civil. And then I'd like to have another internship next year. And then I just could use the skills I learned in school and then in my future jobs. And then there's just the thank you slide to Rydell and Burke and Mick. And they asked me if I wanted a job there, so I will have a job for the summer at Rydell, which is kind of cool.
Perfect. That's a good announcement to make.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Was it difficult to manage like school and work? And that's an early morning start.
Not really, because I usually get up pretty early, and it was like 7:30, so that wasn't really a problem.
Okay.
And since we had the hour and a half schedule for classes, it worked out pretty well.
Okay.
So I could just go into the internship a little early, and then I have plenty of time to get to school.
Because one of my concerns with the change in schedule, of course, we have a changed schedule for next year. So we're going back to 7 hours. And so when we start at 9:30, if you work till 9:30, then you're gonna miss maybe almost a whole first hour.
Yeah, or it would count as credit towards
That first hour. So really the counselors could work with them though to build a schedule that would be helpful so that you're not always missing that first hour 3 days a week. That would be tough to keep up.
And I think they usually count as a class, so you don't have class the hour that you have your internship.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and it's learn and earn, so that the learning part is actual credit, and then, the earning is the job that generates income.
Okay.
So, but I agree with you that going from the block to a 7-period day, could impact. And so George and Bert will need to work on some of those details.
Yeah. Well, and it's important to have those, we want to make sure that this is a good experience and, you know, getting behind your, you know, whatever you might be missing, you don't want to do that, so. But, you know, the experience is so valuable, and I'm glad that there's credit for that time, so that's
And
great.
the students submit a reflection paper.
Yeah, and we have like a whole class thing with Mick.
Yeah, they have a class with Mick on this, work-based learning.
Sure.
And I didn't have any issues like with schoolwork or anything.
Okay.
Like based off, yeah.
Good. Nikki, you're in the queue, and then Kirsten.
So you worked for about an hour at Rydell a day?
It was 2 hours on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
Okay, and then you would attend the class probably Tuesdays and Thursdays, right?
We just we didn't have class usually because the stuff was like, it was just assignments. He posted them at the beginning of the week, and we had the extra class periods to work on like Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Okay, and you did all that and for just one semester or the whole year?
It was just one semester.
So you did all those interchanging of different departments and learning all those skills in just that amount of time?
Well, the stuff with Burke was earlier in the year, and then the internship I had only lasted about a month, so like 1 quarter maybe.
So you still learned all those skills at Rydell in just a month?
Yeah.
Wow. These are the things that we need to be, because human resources, that takes for a lot of people years to accomplish. And if we can start getting them while they're young and getting those training, that is impressive. Thank you for coming and sharing your story.
Yeah. Well, some of them, those were just things I experienced too. I didn't necessarily learn all of them, but.
But still, you got your foot in the door of the just for the experience, just in those. It's pretty impressive.
Were you able to use the equipment at Rydell, or was that kind of off limits?
I used most of the stuff. I think there's some stuff that I like wasn't qualified to use, but yeah, I could still do the internship like fully. They just didn't let me do some stuff.
The Department of Labor and Industry did a walkthrough last year of every one of our employer partners. So this year, to get reapproval, they simply had a virtual meeting, and companies sent in pictures of the equipment students would be using. But they had already visited the sites in person to evaluate. And last year and this year were both impacted by COVID. So the first year, the students had 2 placements. Second year, 1 placement. This one happened just April and May, and that was because it wasn't safe, or it was only for essential workers until, April. So they were still able to have a placement, and it was great. Awesome.
Yeah, I love the hands-on experiences,
Yeah.
because then you really get a feeling for different options.
And all of those employers have to submit a meaningful supervised training program to the DLI to get approval. So emphasis on meaningful. So, and I think you can tell from Devin, it really was. They all come through that way. It's just amazing.
Well, I would imagine that for, part of it is just exposure to different occupations, and it's also helpful. It maybe helps you to figure out what you might want to do, but it also can help you to figure out, no, this is not for me.
Yeah.
So that's half of it. So that's wonderful.
What are you doing there now?
Pretty much the same thing I was doing, just like the general factory work.
Yeah, that's good. I know Rydell's, my brother-in-law is the president there, so
Yeah.
I'm very well familiar with the operation, and they're neat people that come and work there.
Yes, they
And
do.
you probably see it, they
Yeah.
probably see they're neat people, so I applaud you for accepting the summer position there to learn more about it. And you're right, I mean, this whole pandemic, you think there's so many things that it affected. We can't begin to think of the things that the last 16 months created, but people were cooped up. Guess what they wanted? Rollerblades. Guess what they couldn't get? Rollerblades.
Yeah.
So they're back ordered, like you said.
Yep.
Exactly. So applaud you. Thank you, Devin.
Yeah.
Any other questions for these folks before we move on?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, well,
Thanks.
thank you so much for joining us this evening. We really appreciate your time. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
Super great. Lots to celebrate there.
Thank you all.
Have a good night.
Yes.
All right. Please pause for just a moment. As Superintendent Anderson has the next agenda item.
Want to go to public comment? What's next?
Did that, right now.
Yeah, that was it? We had that with Mr. Bowles, that was the only one? That's right.
Next on our agenda is the learning plan for 21-22. The district has solicited some feedback from parents and community members, stakeholders about our learning plan for this fall and next school year. And we'll continue to engage the community to get more feedback. And I'll turn it over to you I just kind of set it up for you, the learning plan for the next year.
Oh, sure, thank you. So as required by federal law, we developed a safe learning plan for next year, and we solicited a real rough draft of the safe learning plan. And then we solicited a public comment by sending out an email message to parents in the district, as well as the people who signed up for our community updates. So we received over 30 public comments. We redacted personal information from those public comments and posted everything on the website. So if you go to the school district's website now, you can actually see redacted versions of the public comment. The next stage in developing our plans for next year will be outreach to different groups in the community, and again, to solicit their feedback and make adjustments. And then we'll be bringing back an updated plan for the school board to review later this summer. So again, we're still soliciting feedback, from community people, and then we will bring it back. But I just wanted to include it as kind of an FYI. And feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about the plan or our thinking for next year.
I appreciate that we have a draft of that learning plan in our board packet. So if it's difficult, I'm sure it's easy to find on our website, but it's also in our board packet. So there's 2 different ways to access this information.
Again, it's a work in progress. This is the first draft, and we'll be making adjustments and bringing it back to the board.
Wonderful, thank you. Next on our agenda is activities update with Mr. Paul Hartman.
Good evening, everybody. I see from the board packet that we have quite a full agenda, so I don't want to take too much of your time here this evening, but I just wanted to provide you with some information that we solicited from some of our student athletes throughout the course of our season. Certainly over the past 16 months, it's been as we all know, it's been a challenging time for all of us, but it's been a challenging time for our coaches, advisors, and our activity members as well. And Lisa, I don't necessarily think I'm going to go slide by slide and just read the slides verbatim, but if you could present those, that would be appreciated. Thank you, Lisa. Certainly, as part of Winger activities, we follow the our mission statement here in Red Wing Public Schools, and I'm really trying to help everybody understand that we see ourselves, and our coaches, advisors, our administration sees ourselves as an extension of the school day. The term extracurricular activities has been used for a long time, but we believe that we are co-curricular. I think words are powerful, and I think the choice there of co is important. Jennifer Tift asked me a couple weeks ago when I jumped on the call about our participation numbers, and I shared this out in an email with the board the following day, but I just wanted to give you a little snippet here. As you can see, now the participation numbers with enrollment, it's a little skewed because the participation numbers, you could be counted twice. If there's an individual that's involved in a fall activity as well as a winter, we count them twice in terms of our participation numbers here. But if you look at the percentage of enrollment, pretty significant number of our students are involved in these activities. As you can see, in 1920 and 2021, we did see a slight dip in that, and certainly the pandemic has impacted that. As we get back here into the fall, we'd like to see those numbers go back to where they previously were, in that 90 to 100%, if not more, as a percentage of our overall enrollment. Some of those numbers are skewed as well because we did make the decision to not have certain activities this year. For example, we did not have 7th and 8th grade middle school basketball this year just because of the crossover of pods. A number of those kids are involved in association ball. So those numbers are a little bit skewed there as well. You can kind of just go through the next few slides, Lisa. These are all the different academic accomplishments our athletes had. You see our swim team there, our soccer team, our boys swim and dive team, our girls tennis team, our gymnastics team. We just found out yesterday that our baseball team all received either academic gold or academic silver. There's volleyball as well. Anywhere from a 3.75 to a 4.0. The silvers were 3.5 to a 3.75. So as you can see with Mr. Klatt here just a few minutes ago, he was also a student athlete for us and for himself and for our track team here this past spring. Students are involved and they're making differences in the lives of others and for their own lives as well. With the help of some surrounding schools, namely a colleague of mine out of Hastings, we introduced some student surveys at the end of our fall, winter, and spring seasons, looking at those 4 core areas of competence, confidence, connection, and character. Certainly competence and confidence, not only in that given skill, but how they are using some of those soft skills that we saw in the Learn and Earn program. But I'd like to think that a lot of our activities are teaching some of those soft skills that individuals are going to need for the rest of their life. I think the number one thing we offer of those C's is we offer connection. We offer a connection from our students back into our building when our school day is over. We offer connection to trusted adults. We offer connections from student to student in developing those lifelong meaningful relationships. And so athletes in our junior varsity and our varsity programs were surveyed at the conclusion of their seasons. It was a 15 question or 15 statements that they had the opportunity to agree, disagree, strongly agree, etc. Depending on the student, it took about 10 minutes. The next slide, I think, shows those 15 statements. Again, going back to those 4 areas that we are trying to look at from an activities department. I don't feel the need necessarily to read each one of those statements. Certainly, I'm going to pause anytime you jump in the queue and answer a question or two, and obviously we'll answer some questions at the end. But what we're looking at here is a holistic approach to activities and athletics, from the actual game itself to those connections, to enjoyment, to the skills that are being taught and learned in those given sports and activities. And then that relationship piece is really what we want to try to focus on. I have not been in a meeting in a while. I see Holly jumped into the queue. Do you want me to manage the queue or?
Go ahead, Paul.
Okay. Holly. If I missed something, let me know. Go ahead, Holly.
I looked through this earlier. I can't remember. Did you put the response rate, like how many kids responded to this survey?
I did not put that in here, no. I can tell you that as a percentage, the numbers were much higher in the fall and winter as compared to the spring, because we got the spring one out kind of late and there was a lot of stuff going on there in June. But it was a very high response rate. I have it at my desk. I just don't have that off the top of my head right now.
Is it like ballpark, like 70, 80%?
Yes.
Or? Okay.
At least, yeah. Very high response rate.
That's fine.
Yeah. Nikki.
As a sports mother that's not really into sports herself, I would have to say that because we do association and school, school sports make my life so much easier. And you're right about the connections. That was an addition. They were additional adults, additional children for my kids to interact with and help my child with real life situations. That's what community is all about. And I would just have to say, give your whole department a pat on the back. You guys really did an amazing job with pulling this off for this school year, because I understand it was tough, but yeah, I would have to say that as a sports parent that I prefer school sports versus the association sports. So thank you very much.
Yep. I think Karsten jumped in there.
Yeah, Paul, just clarification. Do these numbers include like the Nordic ski program and ultimate frisbee?
That's a very good question. Since those two programs are not run out of our office, they're run through community ed. I just went with the registered participants that run through our office, but that's certainly something that we can look to expand into next year.
Yeah, and again, I was just curious and just, because our numbers are even higher in terms of participation if we include the kids in those two activities.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. In addition to that too, I'm glad you brought that up, is that, we have a number of kids that are in association activities that aren't necessarily in school based on their age. So they're in association in 7th and 8th. So those numbers are even higher than what we saw there. So yes, they did not register through us. So yeah, those numbers are even higher. So thank you for pointing that out, Karsten. As you look through, I'm not going to go through and just read the percentages verbatim, but I think there's certainly some areas of strong accomplishment, and I think there's certainly some areas that we are going to continue to look at. I chose not to show individual sports. One could argue that I shouldn't have even divided up the seasons, but you certainly saw some trends throughout our time here this year. I think that you look at my coach caring about me, I really tried to focus in on that. And we went through a lot of these statements and survey results with our coaches at their end of the season meetings. And so I think, as you look at our seasons this year for our state high school league sponsored activities, we didn't have any section championships as teams. We didn't have state tournament participations for our teams, but our students still had very strong experiences and very meaningful experiences that we hope that they can take with them into this summer, into next year, and for our graduating seniors throughout the rest of their lives. I think Pam jumped in.
Yeah, I just had a question about activities. I know this is focused on sports, but is there a way to get feedback from the other activities that our students are involved with in the district?
There certainly is, and like I said, this was kind of a trial run by me. I wanted to see how it went initially with our athletic teams, just because they meet every day throughout the course of a 2 to 3 or 4 month season. But certainly, based on the feedback that we've been given, we're going to look to expand this in coming years. I think the wording of some of the statements may need to be adjusted for that. But yes, the answer to that question is yes. Anna, I think.
Yeah. So thank you so much for putting this together. Just kind of popping down to your last slide, your considerations of increasing participation and educating students and families. And one thing that I think about all the time with just the location of the high school is those barriers to participation for students who don't have their own transportation, or who have parents who are working in the evenings and things like that. And I don't know, I'm not suggesting that you come up with an answer right now. I just think that that's something that we maybe overlook a lot of times, is that, that can be a real issue to keep kids from being able to participate in things that happen after school. And with semi-reliable public transportation, but I don't think that the ride regularly makes routes out, it's far enough away that it's there's a pretty significant hill between here and my house that my kid's not going to ride her bike to school or after, so I think that's just something that we, not just for sports, but for any of the activities that happen after school or before school, to think of how can we eliminate some of those barriers to participation, with the understanding that not everybody has a 2-parent household with flexible scheduling and the ability to chauffeur kids around and that kind of thing.
I agree with that 100%. And that's something that we are continuing to look at, some of those transportation issues that come up, that arise with that.
But I think you do have in place some things for families who can't pay the activity fees or for the supplies and stuff like that. I think that you already kind of have some of that in place though, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yep. If you could maybe scroll a little bit more, Lisa. Like I said, I'm not going to read every percentage of every question to you, but a few questions kind of jumped to the end there. Not only this year, but in past years, it has been shown that student involvement in activities, on average, you're looking, depending on if it's a weighted GPA or not, students that are involved have about a 0.8 to a 1.2 higher GPA than those not involved. And so that's one of the things, you know, in the midst of this pandemic and prior to it and post may be the wrong word. But that's one thing that Mr. Nemenich and I are really trying to focus on is how do we get more kids connected back into our building with student activities. And that's going to be one of our goals moving forward here is how do we get more kids involved? Holly?
Thank you, Paul. Anna, you bring up such a great point. And I know that some of the bigger districts can have, sorry, my braces, some of the bigger districts can have an activity bus, you know, that can stick around or come back and get kids at the 5 o'clock time or the 5:30 time. And I know it's expensive. But the point that I see you making tonight, Paula, is that this is an extension of their school day. The activity program and the sports program and those things are extensions of how we go about educating our students and how we go about, you know, preparing them for all kinds of things in life, not just the classroom. So as the team, whoever you're working with thinks about that, if there was an idea of an activity bus, it wouldn't necessarily have to drop kids off at their homes, but it could drop kids off at central locations that would be closer for them to walk to Burnside, or, you know, if it was an AP drop off, or if it was, you know, just different places. I would be interested in hearing something like that, because Anna's right on the money. We're not going to get kids to play if they can't get there or participate. And so I know, like I said, the bigger districts do activity buses for the kids to go home at night. And it helps.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, Paul. Thanks, Anna.
Any other questions for Mr. Hartman? All right, well, I'm not seeing any more, so thank you for joining us this evening. It's been great to see all this information and know that we have a vibrant activity group going on, and we're supporting kids in a number of ways and a number of different avenues where they can express themselves, learn some skills, great opportunity for teamwork, and I think especially in the pandemic too, kids really needed to feel connected to one another, and this was yet another way that we were able to provide that. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda, school board reports. I'm just going to go down the list here. Any updates from Finance Committee?
The only update I have is that we don't have an update yet on the budget from the legislature. So we're still waiting, and hopefully by next Monday, when we have our finance meeting, we'll have an answer about something. Yes, Jim. And then when we meet Monday night, we can have something. They've talked about if the state doesn't come up with a budget, what that looks like for local governments, schools. It doesn't look good. So I'm hoping people can get together and make some decisions up there so we can make our decisions down here.
Yes, thank you.
Nikki and Jim, anything else you want to add about finance?
It's just the way we expected. They wouldn't get their work done, and we wouldn't probably be able to have all the answers by next Monday even. So
Yeah, I know.
Is this something where we could, as a board, write a letter to the legislature, you know, with all of us to say, like, look, we need you to do your job so that we can do ours? You know what I mean? Like
compromise, get along, do the right thing.
You could, really it should come from a more of a bigger network like the School Board Association, as representative of each school and each school listed and all that. We have Goggin and Haley. They're two people, one's in the majority and one's in the minority. So it's the minority in the House seems to be holding up the show. It sounds like Kurt Dowd is pledged to be heard of this and that. So unfortunately, one letter's great. A bigger letter is even better. And you're on the right idea, but to get that now, because there's so many pieces of their budget that they're doing. We're just gonna have to pass the budget next Monday, no matter what it is, with what our best guess is, so.
I don't think it could ever hurt. I mean, give our folks a call, give them a message too, that they always like to hear from us, and they've been really good, strong advocates for our district. So it never hurts to send letters, make calls, send emails. Definitely have to lobby. All right, thanks, Holly. Operations, anything, updates from operations?
No, as of right now, there's no meeting scheduled for July unless we have some further information on something that Alan's looking at doing. So nothing, we reported at the last meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
Same thing with personnel. There's nothing new to report. We reported out at the last meeting. Anything from legislative and policy, Arlen?
Yeah, we met tonight, and as usual, we had more than we could get done in our time. We reviewed a data sharing agreement that was proposed to be used with an organization here and gave a little input. We reviewed policies 403, I believe we get all these, 403, 506, 514, 522, 524, and 1000. Trying to remember what each one of them is, but some has to do with human sexual harassment, various things like that. We also talked a little bit about school board procedures. I think Karsten will be addressing that later this meeting. We didn't really reach consensus on everything. I think there's most of what we did is going to be coming back to us next month. We'll be meeting on the 19th of July, but also some of these policies will be brought to the board, I believe, on the 19th of July. So it was a very productive meeting. Now you guys can help me out because I did a very poor job of remembering all the numbers and what they are.
The majority of the policies that we reviewed didn't have any changes made to them. There are just a couple that have a few changes, but yeah, those will be at the second meeting in July for approval.
Good.
Anything else? We have nothing else to report on negotiations. We'll be talking more about that next Monday at our special meeting. Any other meetings that anyone would like to report on? Anna.
Yeah, so when we had our equity workshop, one of the things that we talked about was getting feedback from our community about, you know, how they're feeling about the district, and especially in relation to equity. And so Jennifer and I met with Michelle Weisey, who, with her role with Live Healthy Red Wing, started kind of that process of what became the 2040 plan. And now her role as the, I don't know her exact title, community engagement specialist, something like that, with the city of Red Wing. So she had already done, you know, for the last, 4 or 5 years, has done a lot of that engagement work. So we just, you know, got feedback from her about what worked and maybe what didn't, and how she would recommend us kind of going forward with that. And she, you know, felt really strongly that physically being out in person at different places where people are, like at the pool, outside of daycares, at the Elks when, you know, families are coming to get their school supplies, concerts in the park, nights to unite, those types of things, to just have a presence and, you know, listen to what the community has to say and have some questions to kind of structure their feedback. She suggested things like, what do you love about, in her case, it was, what do you love about Red Wing and what would you change about Red Wing? And just kind of left it really broad. And then to maybe have some specific things, like we talked a lot about, and so Jennifer and I brought up with her the complaint process that we've all talked about of, you know, having who does that go to, and how does that process work if you are a student or a teacher who feels like there is an issue that's occurring. So, you know, one of Michelle's thoughts was to just kind of open that up to say, if you had a problem at school, how would you want that to be addressed, and to just kind of get that feedback from the community. So it's just, you know, we're just kind of starting this kind of process, but looking at, you know, having some opportunities for the community to give feedback in a personal, verbal way, not just written surveys or, you know, things that go out that are easily deleted or sent to the junk email or, you know, that kind of thing. And working with the organizations who have a trusted relationship with different communities. You know, we've kind of talked about this, and Nikki has brought it up, that, you know, members of Prairie Island community may not feel comfortable talking to me, but they might feel comfortable talking to Nikki. And, you know, the other community groups that we have, where Hope Coalition already has a trusted relationship with families, to kind of utilize that to partner with them, for them to help us get feedback from different groups that might not always feel comfortable, you know, kind of talking to authority, or not comfortable within the school system, or just kind of not know how to navigate, how to come speak at a meeting, how to send emails, and, you know, that type of thing. So anything else that I missed?
I don't think so. It was great. It was a very worthwhile meeting. I think it's just the next is determining where do we go with it, you know, from here. What do we do next? How can we use what we learned from Michelle moving forward? Is there something we can do this summer? Next step.
Mm-hmm. Would it be prudent to put that on our agenda for next Monday to just have a deeper discussion about that? Or maybe into July? Or do you want to take that back to your equity team?
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was thinking, but I don't know when the equity team is meeting again next. So maybe if we put it on like the July agenda, we can kind of do a little legwork in between, and I can talk to Jess with the equity committee and kind of see what the plan is there. And
Okay, so an update back in July?
yeah,
Okay,
At the workshop?
that sounds like a meeting?
I think at a
in
meeting,
July.
yeah, what do we
One
don't
meeting
have the
in
first
July.
one, just the second one. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Look at my
first
calendar.
meeting. Yeah, we don't have one.
Just the
Monday.
19th?
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess if there's room on the agenda, I think that would probably be good, so that we can hopefully maybe still do some things throughout the summer.
And then if you could give me, you know, the rough draft of information the
Yeah.
Wednesday before.
Yeah.
Preferably earlier than that, but the very
Yes,
latest. the
yes.
Wednesday before.
Do you have that on the agenda, your sheet, or do you want me to write that down?
Got it.
Got it. All right, good. Thank you. Any other committees or meetings that anyone would like to report?
The Native American Parent Committee. I was actually pretty sick during that, and I didn't take any notes, but I do remember a lot of because it was a pretty big meeting of, you know, what are we to do with the rest of the funds? You know, we don't want them to go back to the state. And so, well, I think what they had decided is that it's going to go a lot. Some are going to go to the books that are going to fund the Native literature class. And then also what they want to do, what we decided to do is that we want to be able to provide some money for training for some teachers and for our staff and stuff like that. So just kind of keep that on your radar for when training comes about, I think this fall. So it will be offered, I know. So that's what they had decided to do with the rest of the funding for this year. So.
Great. Thank you. Anything else? Any other updates? All right, then I will turn it over to the superintendent for his report.
Well, I was on vacation the day after our last board meeting, so I really don't have much information to share. I did include some potential workshop topics, and in June, really it's not a workshop, it's a special meeting, but we're planning to approve, well, we need to approve the initial budget for the next school year. So that'll be on the agenda. And then we've been planning a labor negotiation strategy session, which would be in closed session. Of course, as we were talking about earlier, we don't have financial information from the state, but I think we should continue with that closed session just to talk about some of the big topics that we have and, you know, look at some different possibilities. So I'm really disappointed that we don't have the financial numbers from the state. That's going to slow us down, I think. But that's what's happening in June. You can see the list of everything else. During the committee meeting today, we did talk about using a workshop session to talk about student discipline, especially with an equity lens, as well as curriculum, you know, in terms of policy 1000, again, with an equity lens. And so I'll be adding those two topics to potential workshop opportunities. That's all I have.
Okay. All right, the consent agenda is next does anybody have anything they would like to pull from the consent agenda this evening? Seeing nothing, then I will look for a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Motion made by Anna, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Jennifer, any other discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote to approve the consent agenda as presented, starting with Mr. Bryant.
Aye.
Ms. Buck.
Aye.
Mr. Derricks.
Aye.
Ms. Ostenberg.
Aye.
Ms. Tower.
Aye.
Ms. Tift.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. The consent agenda passes 7-0. Donations and grants.
I'd like to recognize three groups for their donations. First of all, Sergeant's Nursery, $500 for the Twin Bluff Playground. Noblesdorf Electric for just under $32,000 for home dorm toolkits for our graduating seniors. Mick Wendland showed me one of the kits, and it's very impressive. So at the time, he was trying to figure out ways to work with students as they're graduating on how to use the items in the kit. I'm not sure how far he got with that, but what a great donation.
Yeah.
You know, again, it's hands-on, it's impactful, and so we want to thank them for that generous donation. By the way, it's one piece of a larger donation. So I think it's a 6-figure plan that they've put out so far. So that's amazing. And then also, I say this so often, but once again, thank you to the Red Wing Public Schools Foundation for just under $3,000 for hub-to-hall microphones.
Motion to approve with a comment.
All right, Jim has made the motion to approve donations and grants. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second, any other feedback, comments?
I do.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, you're right about Knobelsdorf. I believe I saw where for the area schools in the county, there's up to a $500,000 grant that they're providing to schools for different reasons, different ways. They're a worldwide corporation, as Burke had talked about before. Big operation just outside of the little town of Goodhue. And let's not forget about Sergeant's Nursery. The 500 is an enormous donation too for our playground and school foundations to help us with the microphones that we just approved and needed for that of the hall. So our community steps up a lot of times and donate things to us. And there's three are two within the school district and one outside that doing everything they can to help our students.
Don't do it without them. All right, motion on the table made by Jim, seconded by Anna. Any other discussion? Take a roll call vote, this time starting with Ms. Buck.
Aye.
Mr. Derricks.
Aye.
Ms. Ostenberg. Aye. Ms. Tower.
Aye.
Ms. Tift. Aye. Mr. Bryant.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, that passes 7-0. All right, proposal to close Jefferson School.
The board packet includes information about the context for making the recommendation to close Jefferson School, publication notices in the Republican Eagle that are required by state law, information about the public hearing that was held at the last school board meeting. No one was present to share their public comment about closing Jefferson School. And we also have the reasons for the proposed closing also listed in the board packet. I'm certainly willing to take questions if there are any, but the recommendation is to move to close Jefferson School prior to the beginning of the 21-22 school year.
Any discussion?
I will just say that, you know, it is a beautiful school. I got to sub there this year and that was really cool. So, you know, it's sad to see it go back into being closed, but I think it is the best decision for all the reasons that are in the packet. But, you know, it worked out really well to have it this year. And that, you know, people got to have a really cool experience with Jefferson. So that's all I had to say.
Well said.
And I will make a motion to close Jefferson School prior to the beginning of the 2021-22 school year.
Do I have a second?
Nikki Buck seconds as I silently cry, but yes.
I know. Any other discussion?
If I just may,
Sure.
I'm not in the queue. Yeah, I went there sixth grade, so and the building was up pretty long before I was there, but it's a beautiful building. We sold it twice, got it back twice. So let's hope we can at some point benefit the community by having somebody turn it into something that's meaningful that they can use. So.
All right, I have a motion on the table made by Anna, seconded by Nikki. Any further discussion? We'll take a roll call vote, this time starting with Mr. Derricks.
Aye.
Ms. Ostendorf.
Aye.
Ms. Tower.
Aye.
Ms. Tift. Aye. Mr. Bryant.
Aye.
Ms. Buck.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Passes 7-0. All right, Red Wing Public School Storage Area Network recommendation.
Yeah, as part of our operating capital plan, we did include replacement of our storage area network, or SAN, for our computer systems. And so Kevin Johnson led the effort to solicit quotes. We've received 3. They are listed in the board packet. And the recommendation is to approve the quote submitted by Now Micro in the amount of $345.74 to replace a district-wide storage area network.
Make a motion to approve.
So moved.
Jim made the motion. Would you like to second it, Holly?
Is that what he just said?
He did, yes.
I heard him say something. I'm gonna second it, Jim.
Molly, I'll second it. Any discussion? Mr. Derricks.
Sorry, I'm not fast enough on that mute button. Did we get any references on these 3 different organizations for storage? There's quite a $50,000 discrepancy from low to high. Are they all reputable? Have we checked them? What do we know about each one of them?
Yes, we have checked each one of them. The Cyber Advisors one actually is a Dell product. Now Micro is probably the largest vendor of Tintry brand. So Tintry is actually the manufacturer we went with. And the reason Now Micro is the lowest is they have the state contract on this device. So that's why they came in low. And we actually have a Tintry now, and it is a good piece of equipment and a good company, yes.
Thank you.
Good question.
Any other discussion?
I just really wanted to say I appreciate you coming in under the allotted amount. So whoever those people are that sent you that amount that they're willing to go for, yay.
Some background information on it helped too. So.
Good. All right, motion on the table made by Jim and seconded by Holly to go with Now Micro in the amount of $111,345.74 to replace the district-wide storage area network. We'll take a roll call vote, this time starting with Ms. Ostendorf.
Aye.
Ms. Fowler.
Aye.
Ms. Tift.
Aye.
Mr. Bryant.
Aye.
Ms. Buck.
Aye.
Mr. Derricks.
Aye.
And chair votes aye, passes 7-0.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson for being with us this evening. Appreciate your work.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, next is school board procedures.
Yeah, my recommendation is changing from approving the handbook to tabling the handbook until July 19th, but I want to explain why. Last Tuesday, had a brief discussion about ADA and Section 504 coordinator responsibilities. And so thinking about that further, I think we need a little time to really double check whether Amy French is the right person to do that, or perhaps Sherry Johnson, who's our special education director. By far, most of the complaints that would come through about those two areas would go through Sherry Johnson. So the request is to table it for that reason, just so that we can take a look at that, and then we take it through the Legislative Policy Committee on the 19th and the board, that same evening. So another question that came up as a result of the committee discussion just a couple of hours ago had to do with including the school board member pay plan in that handbook. And so committee members would prefer it as a separate document, it's fine with me either way. I just don't think we should wait on it or, belabor discussion about it, meeting after meeting. But the committee's recommendation is that have that as a separate item, and then we'd approve both of them, hopefully on July 18th.
So you need a motion to table I'll make a motion to table the school board procedure handbook until July 19th, school board meeting.
I'll second.
All right, motion to table until July 19th, made by Jim, seconded by Holly. Any other discussion?
Discussion on the table.
Okay, good to know. No discussion on the table. All right, we'll start roll call with Ms. Tower.
Yes.
Ms. Tift.
Aye.
Mr. Bryant.
Aye.
Ms. Buck.
Aye.
Mr. Derricks.
Aye.
Ms. Ostendorf. Aye. And chair votes aye. That item is tabled until July 19th. Okay, early childhood director.
For the past several years, we've been planning for the resignation or retirement of Min-Mark Noakes, our current early childhood director. This year, we're making that transition, and instead of hiring the position through the Goodhue County Ed District, I'm planning to post it and hire it as a Red Wing school employee. But because we did that, we developed, or because that's the plan, we developed a position description, sent it through Bjorklund Compensation to rate it or band it. And after reviewing those results, we are recommending that this particular position be classified in Group A of the terms and conditions of employment for program directors and supervisors. It matches the same category as the category for Paul Hartman, our activities director. And so it'd be in line with that particular position. So that's the recommendation that's presented.
Let's see, Mr. Derricks. Arlen, your name's in the queue?
Thank you. Can you give us any information how this figures out cost-wise to previous years on what we're doing?
I know Jackie had developed that information. Of course, it all depends on who we hire and where we place that person on the salary schedule. but the assumption is that it's somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000, but it could be less than that, it could be more than that, depending on who we hire.
10 to 15 less than we've spent in other years or more than other years?
Be more. Yeah, and in our budget reconciliation plan, we included that that anticipated increase. So we've already addressed that in terms of our planning for next year.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. I would just rather see the numbers on paper trying to understand this.
Sure.
Mr. Bryant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Alongside what Mr. Derrick said, the costs, is there federal funding that we get back for this? Because it's tied to GCED, and I'd rather see numbers in front of me too. Just go 10 to 15,000 might be higher, might be less.
Yeah, and to answer your question, the bulk of the funding for the position comes from community education and state special education funding. There could be a portion that comes out of federal special education fund as well, but the bulk is community ed and state special ed.
I see Jackie in the queue.
Hi, I'm on the call. I thought I would step in. The cost to the general fund would be, it currently costs the general fund $9,800 for this position, and the new costing, again, depending on where they're hired on the scale, could be around $17,000. So we're looking at an $8,000 cost to the general fund. The bulk of the increase would come from the community ed fund, where this position is currently costing around $56,000, and it would move up to $78,000 out of the community ed fund. There is state funding for this position for the piece of it that is special ed, but this position oversees both the special ed department at Colville and the early childhood programming at Colville and preschool programming.
And just so you're aware, birth to 5 special education from birth on is mandated services. So it's not an optional service that we provide for our children with special needs. And we will be doing a time study to determine, the position has evolved in the last few years. So we will be studying to see how much is special ed, how much is community ed. This is birth to age 5, comprehensive programming. So really where the contract is held is really what's going to be changing. It's moving from the ed district to the school district.
Okay.
Sure, go ahead. And did we talk about who is the supervisor for this position?
It would primarily, responsibility primarily reside with Ron, but then also Marcia Walker have a important role as a she's the director of our special education program.
I know, I see you in the community.
It's under community education.
Okay.
So this past year, I know it was split between Min still being the director and then Brittany being the kind of site manager. How is that what's the plan for that going into the next year? Does this position replace both or just Min's portion? How is that?
It replaces both.
Okay. So when we're looking at the funding or the cost part of this, Jackie, is that figured in that this is?
Well, last year, community ed paid the coordinator, so I paid Brittany. We paid Brittany. So really, it's always been a combination of special ed and community ed for as long as the program has been around, 30, 40 years. So it is a breakdown of both. In Red Wing, we have a comprehensive learning center that serves all children, which is your best model. So we prorate that financially between the different funding sources.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'll make the motion to change the terms and conditions of employment for program directors and supervisors to include the early childhood director in Group A as presented.
I'm going to second it.
Jennifer made the motion, Holly seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote, starting with Ms. Tift.
Aye.
Mr. Browning?
Aye.
Ms. Buck?
Aye.
Mr. Derricks?
No.
Ms. Ostendorf?
Aye.
Ms. Tower?
Hi.
All right, motion passes, chair votes aye, and motion passes 6-1. All right, public summary of the superintendent. In June here, we engaged in some feedback from our board on goals that the board had made for our superintendent this past November and December. We were each given an opportunity to weigh in on these goals, on how we feel the superintendent is managing and meeting those expectations and goals. We met in a closed session at our last board meeting on June 7th and had a conversation with the superintendent. We focused on 4 goals: equity planning and how the district is doing with that, recognizing that the superintendent isn't responsible for all of the district's work, but he's certainly the leader and sets the tone. We talked about student achievement, recovery from COVID, and human resources. And so our directives, we would like to have continued work on that equity planning. And of course, we need more work with student achievement. We'd like to see that gap lessen, and I know that there's education plan to develop that, hit those goals. We talked about recovery from COVID. It's been a difficult year. We've appreciated the management of the district through that pandemic, and there was a concern about the shortened quarantine and the conversations surrounding that in terms of a special meeting, and so we discussed that. And then we have directed ongoing work with our human resources planning and hiring practices. It's a strong area of concern for the board. There is an independent consulting firm that's been hired to review our practices and make recommendations for future improvement. And the rest I will let you read on your own. We don't need to continue going through that, but it is a process that we believe evaluations are an important piece of the work that we do here in our district, including that of the superintendent. We will be engaging in a full evaluation come November and December. That's when we rate the superintendent and then come out with some action plans. So this is kind of just to dip our toe in the water, try to figure out where we're at and where we need to move for the next few months, so that when we get to November and the deeper dive, we're prepared to have that discussion. There's no actionable items on this evening. Any comments? All right, seeing none, then, Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, if you don't mind, once again, thank you for the session 2 weeks ago. I think it's important to have dialogue with multiple perspectives. I think that makes us better, and I really appreciate the conversation and the feedback.
Thank you. All right, last item on our agenda this evening, upcoming meetings and future topics. Our next board meeting, we're gonna have a special meeting next Monday. That would be June 28th, right here in J110. It's a special meeting. We'll be having a closed session for part of that. And then we only have one board meeting in July, that's on the 19th, and then a workshop on the 26th. All other committee meetings are listed there in our board packet, so I'll call your attention to that for references.
Do we have a topic for that workshop in July?
We have not designated a topic quite yet, so if you do have some feedback or suggestions, that's a really good time to have a deeper dive on something on that night. So we'll discuss that at our next agenda committee meeting. So if you have some ideas or thoughts, definitely bring those forward. There is a list in our packet that the superintendent keeps, and so we'll take a look at that.
I was just curious, and we'll talk on 13th, I think, the agenda committee meets, but if Anna brought that between you and Jennifer went with Michelle, if our agenda gets too lengthy on the 19th, my suggestion would be to move that topic to the workshop on the 26th and to the regular board meeting early in August. But we'll have to see with the agenda, because that could be quite a dialogue that we have based upon the information that you uncovered.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just throwing that out there as a possibility.
Well, and it wouldn't be bad to circle back around on the equity planning that we had from earlier in our year with the workshop that we had, because we did have some action plans at that workshop, and so it'd be a good time to see where we're at with all that and what our next step should be. So it's not a bad idea.
And we may just be able to give it time that it needs to by doing it. I'm just throwing it out there as a possibility.
Sure.
Nothing's been decided.
Any other future topics or upcoming meetings to discuss? Seeing none, then I will look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, who has a second?
I'll second.
And a seconding motion to adjourn. We have to take a roll call vote for that, starting with, what am I up to, Mr. Bryant?
Aye.
Ms. Buck?
Aye.
Mr. Derricks?
Aye.
Ms. Ostendorf? Aye. Ms. Tower?
Aye.
Ms. Tift? Aye. Chair votes aye. We're adjourned at 7:36. And just so you all know, when we start meeting all in person, we don't have to take all this roll call.
Save some time.
Yeah.
And is that in August again? You'll just have to keep reminding me.
Decided, right? All right.
Okay. Thank you. I like these meetings when they're speedy.
Me too.